Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Ainslie's Gold Silver Standard Insights. And if you're new to the show, welcome too. I'm your host, Joe. As usual, we have Chris Tipper here to break down the morning's news, which is posted on the Ainslie website. And joining Chris today is Cass Smith from Freedom Financial Solutions. Now, Cass was a fan favorite from a couple of weeks ago when she was here talking about self-managed super funds. And we've got her back today because we're doing a very similar topic. Today's topic happens to be over-indebted government coming for your managed super, not SMSF. So, Cass, welcome to the show. Once again, great to have you. And Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Joe. After we had Cass Smith with us here last time on Insights, we got a lot of positive feedback and questions about self-managed super, and specifically around the concerns she raised about how the government could potentially get in the way of our plans for our own retirement. A lot of the discussion from our audience, but also amongst ourselves in the office, was around how we have never really considered that our hard-earned money and the sacrifices we make in the present to secure that wealth for the future could be used for anything other than what we personally wanted. A single line from the news today really got me thinking on this topic again. The line was, "A key problem is that despite compulsory superannuation being in effect since 1992, the primary purpose of superannuation is yet to be defined." I found that line to be quite terrifying personally. I suppose that I, probably like most Australians who aren't yet at retirement age, simply don't give my super enough day-to-day thought and put far too much trust in the idea that my super is my money I've saved and it will always be there waiting for me in retirement, along with some returns it's hopefully earned along the way. So when we hear from experts like Cass or some of the important points raised in the news article today, we need to stop and pay attention, because it does matter and it can have a significant impact on our quality of life that we experience in the future. So thank you so much for joining us again today, Cass. As I said, the response to your segment last time was fantastic, and we have a lot more questions to explore. So let's jump back into that today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. Yes, I share your concerns over some of the recent media articles that have been coming out just over the last week in particular, or last week it was. The government has started making rumblings along the lines of that they're going to collaborate with superannuation funds. And they also mentioned legislate with superannuation funds to basically force the super funds to invest money in sustainable housing. That to me is very, very frightening. As you were just saying, a lot of people, well, most people think that their super will just be there for them when the time comes, and they don't really give any thought to where their super is invested. A lot of people don't even realise that their superannuation is in the share market. And as we were discussing earlier, the share market has just had its biggest one-day fall for a very, very long time. People are now starting to wake up when they listen to people like myself that that's your superannuation. When the share market tanks, so does your superannuation. And that's an eye-opener. And then even more of an eye-opener if now the government can somehow swoop in and decide to put your super into affordable housing. And yeah, as you were saying, our superannuation, the purpose should be for our retirement, but it seems the government has got all sorts of broad-based ideas for where they think our superannuation should be. So to me, it just keeps coming back to the point of self-managed super funds. I've been involved in self-managed super funds for over 20 years. I've always thought they're better than sliced bread, but now they're really coming into their own, because people are listening to information like this and thinking, hey, I don't want my super used for affordable housing. There's even been some whispers that the super will be used for the smart cities.
Wow.
So I don't know about you, Chris, but I don't want my super put into a smart city.
Well, this was a lot of the conversation that we were having. So after you're on last time, people going, wait a second, what? Like it really did stop people a little bit to think, okay, there's more here. And I suppose the flow on from that for them was, okay, I haven't been paying enough attention. You've caught my attention. So what do we do about that? So how do I stop that from happening? I suppose that was the first question that a lot of people had asked me.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people know that you can't touch your super till retirement age. There's a lot of misconfusion about what age that actually is, and there's a lot of different rules around it, but roughly 60, depending on your circumstances. Yep. So if you're under 60, what do you do about it? And the only answer to me is self-managed super fund, where you can take it out of the systems where it is and put it in a self-managed super fund, which really at the end of the day, most people get to see as a bank account that they control. Right. That becomes their superannuation. They still can't take it out before age 60, but they can choose what to invest it in. And overwhelmingly, all of the clients we are working with all day, every day, are using it for gold and silver, and also potentially rural property, and joining communities and investing in a community where, you know, we can have some land, hopefully, for future use. So,
okay. And there were some questions around that too, because people were asking, like, I suppose it's that initial thing that happens when you hear some new information like this. And for a lot of people, it's not new. I accept that. They might already be set up. But for people who are hearing new information, their concern is this all sounds very daunting. And I know I've been in that spot myself. I mean, I know I do have a self-managed super fund now, but it is a process, and that sort of daunting aspect of it. Can you just talk to that a little bit about potentially why people don't need to worry so much about that?
Yeah, good question, because one of the key problems is that a lot of people speak to their accountant or their financial planner and get told, oh, no, way too difficult, way too hard. There's a whole lot of rules. It's very complex. I counter that by explaining that our motto has always been self-managed super fund made simple. Yep. So literally you fill in an order form, send it back to us, and we do all the work for you. And then moving forward as well, yes, the rules are very complex, but you're not expected to know all the rules. You're just expected to contact a professional like ourselves and ask us questions, and we do all the complexity. There's a huge amount of paperwork in the background. In fact, this, for example, is a whole set of financial accounts.
There's a bit there.
50 odd pages. That's just for my fund. But we do all of that, and then we arrange the audit. We arrange everything that needs to be done to make sure that you're compliant with the tax department.
And just to follow down that path a little bit, because I also had some questions, and it's great because we had these questions. It's great to be able to ask you them in person about gold and silver, because obviously we're dealing in gold and silver, and people, that's what sparks their interest. They were particularly interested in what you said about being able to have the gold and silver in your own home. And they were also wanting some follow-up on this auditing question, because some people are still concerned about what that audit actually means, and whether that means like audit is obviously a word that strikes fear into the heart of many people who have not been through that process necessarily before. So if you could just talk us a little bit through, firstly, gold and silver specifically, and what you can and can't do with that, but also the holding it yourself angle.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, people are asking other accountants who are saying, no, you can't do that. But I personally have been holding gold and silver, personally hidden somewhere safe, in my SMSF for 12 years. And our auditor is completely fine with that. And so all of the clients we are working with now, or majority of them, are holding the gold and silver physically in their own residence. Then the auditor, you're right about the word audit. People go, oh my God, an audit. So basically what the auditor is just another type of accountant. It's not a tax office audit. Tax office have basically outsourced that whole checking to independent auditors. So what it is, as I said, we do these complicated financial statements for every SMSF. Then we send these with all of the associated background paperwork to an auditor who sits at his desk and checks it all off. I was an SMSF auditor myself for the first 5 or 6 years of the firm. And yeah, it was probably a half an hour, 45-minute job at max, just to double check all the paperwork. The auditor is really just double checking that us as the accountant has done the right thing, we've accounted for it all properly, and that the client hasn't breached any rules. So then the auditor just ticks it off, gives an audit report, and that's the end of the story. They do not go and check your gold and silver. Some people have these images of an auditor turning up with a badge saying, please check your gold. It's nothing like that.
Well, that is the image that comes to mind, isn't it? Like it's like a sort of interrogation of some description. Yeah.
Yeah, when the auditor's only charging maybe about $300 for the audit, he just wants to get the paperwork done as quick as possible.
Sure.
They don't drive anywhere. They don't come and check your gold. What our auditor has decided they would like is just a photograph of the gold and silver on a newspaper dated around about that time.
Proof of life.
Yeah, proof of life. Just to prove that, yeah, as at that date, you still have it. You haven't gone and spent it.
Okay. And I'll sort of take a bit of a turn here, but if we go back to this idea of what you're talking about before, using your super for what you want to use it for, what do you see as the risks of the government potentially stepping in and impacting the rules around self-managed super? Because there are a couple of questions that I had, including what I was thinking of myself, around this is all good, we go set that up, but are we then a target like these big industry funds effectively if the government is coming for that money?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a good question. So I always have this standard joke that back when I was with the tax department, we had a joke that the parliamentarians would meet every Friday over wine and change the super rules for fun, because that's what it felt like, changes every week. We haven't had that much instability lately, but what happens, well, in my 30 years of dealing with superannuation, when they change the rules, they normally make it prospective, not retrospective.
Right.
Which basically means if you've already set up the SMSF, you've already done this, then they may change the rules, but that will affect a new funds set up or new money going in from then on in. Right. So my answer to that is just get in while you can. Don't hold back for fear of the rules changing. Also,
so potentially that could actually benefit you because you might be sort of grandfathered in with things that may not be possible for new people coming in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's happened plenty of times before. And that's why that retirement age is sort of different, because for some people it's 55, 56, 57, 58, because they transitioned it in. They just didn't go change the rule. They went, we'll change the rule, but we won't go retrospective. We'll allow a grandfathering provision. So it's just a matter of getting in. You can't sit back and be fearful for what may come in the future. Get in while you can. If they do change any rules, we'll deal with it as we go through.
Sure. So is there anything you want to sort of just to summarize that up? Because I think that has answered a lot of questions and we'll no doubt have more, but really my interpretation of your summary would be get in, like you just said, and at least have a look at this as something that does allow you to secure your future in a way that you've got more control over. Is that really how you would summarize it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd just like to throw in an extra thing, and I don't want to be alarmist, but big things are happening. Big things are happening. I think a lot of us know some of the things that are happening out there. There's signs, there's indicators everywhere that things are rolling out quite fast at the moment. And what I am concerned about is that at some stage, any time from now to maybe a year or two, they might change the rules and stop you getting your money out so easily out of the industry and retail funds.
Right.
And an example of that we're seeing is the funds are starting to slow down the withdrawals. So we used to get them out quite quickly. Now some of the funds are saying, oh no, we've got internal accounting to do. We'll roll it out in 4 weeks. They're starting to slow things down. And I had a conversation with a client just this morning, which it doesn't normally happen, but it blew me away. She's just an average, ordinary, everyday person. She's been taking $1,000 out of the ATMs and 2 banks, both of her banks, on the same day. And these were small credit union banks, not the big banks. ME Bank and People's Bank contacted each other behind her back, then called her, both the banks on the same day, and said, your behaviour is outside our policy. You have 14 days we're closing your bank account.
Wow.
Yeah, she blew me away. It's like, she was in tears because she's like, all I did was take cash out of the ATM. Yeah,
well, if you can't do something as simple as that, then there's definitely a reason for concern, isn't there?
So in terms of, particularly with gold and silver, I'm telling people, the best way to move large amounts of money is to do it with the likes of yourself and using BPay, because at this point in time, the banks don't seem to be stopping large BPay transactions to the gold dealer. And I always say at this point in time, so
it is something that you've actually got to be paying attention to
me,
because it's a changing, shifting sands. Yeah.
Time is of the essence. I said to another client earlier this morning who had a very large amount of money sitting in the bank, I said, get that out and get that to gold and silver like yesterday. And he said, yeah, straight after this phone call, I'll call Ainslie Bullion, because things are happening and time really is of the essence.
Wow. Thanks again, Cass, for coming on to break all this down for us today. I know I've learned a few new things here again, and it has given me a lot to think on and go back. And I'm sure people in our audience will have more to discuss around this, and we'll be discussing around the office again, no doubt as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks. And I'm always open for questions if clients want to contact me as well.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
This is why we love having you on the show, Cass, because you bring such amazing information. So thank you very much for being on, and we look forward to seeing you again. Chris, I will see you on the next Insights video. And of course, I'll get all of you to head over to the Discord channel. That's discord.gg/gold. Now, this is if you want to continue the conversation right after we upload this video. Chris will be on for an hour or so, taking your questions, and you can talk to other like-minded individuals. That is discord.gg/gold. Of course, I'm always going to get you to head over to the YouTube channel to like, share, and subscribe. That's youtube.com/Ainslie Bullion. And while you're on the internet, check out goldsilverstandard.com. You never know, it just may interest you. So as always, as we say at the end here, balance your wealth in an unbalanced world. Take care, and we'll see you next time.